totally good too. Okay. Yeah, so summer meetings and projects. I don't remember who brought this up or if they are in the meeting here. But I think the general idea is just to go over what teams do during summer, whether that's, when do they have meetings or different community events. So yeah. Who all has like regularly scheduled meetings during this summer?
We have in the past always done meetings over the summer. We have not talked about that as a team yet. With us just coming back from Worlds, we're still figuring out a lot of like what the off season is going to look like. But yeah, we have done regularly scheduled meetings in the past, and I imagine we will this summer.
Yeah, and Joseph, do you guys focus more on like team building or like side projects during the summer? I think as KnightKrawler, usually we have students elect like different side projects that they want to work on. Maybe it's repairing an old robot or something like that.
Yeah, we place a really heavy emphasis on side projects over the summer. We have like so many people over the course of like the build season that bring up like, oh, we should work on this, we should work on like a new scouting application, or last year was like, oh, like we spent the summer doing Swerve, and so we'll collect those ideas we have a Slack channel for off-season project ideas, and we'll collect those ideas, and then usually at the end of the year we have a meeting to talk about what we're going to do during the off-season. And yeah, we place a really heavy emphasis on off-season projects, but I'm really interested in the idea of team bonding, because I think I've talked a little bit in these meetings about how I think it would be great to have our team work even more on connecting our team, and I think the summer would be a great time to do that, and so I'm interested in hearing more about that.
Yeah, it's definitely something I would like our team to do more as well. I feel like usually what happens is we have our whole season, we have build season, which is super intense, and then competition, and everybody's like really getting to know each other, and then we do like our banquet and we take a break for like a month, and then we kind of like lose that momentum a little bit. But I know the other thing that we certainly do, and hopefully some other teams do, and I'd like to see or hear about other ideas, is like outreach. And in New Brighton, we have what we call like our Stockyard Days parade and festival. It's like a, end of summer. There's a bunch of like vendors and stuff, and we attend and walk in the parade. But I'd be interested to know like what other teams do in kind of that community summer kind of events.
Well, this is Eric on Talon. We usually have quite a few summer events. One of the main one is Eden Prairie usually has a big weekend, 4th of July weekend. It actually goes July 3rd and July 4th. And then they have, everything including the fireworks at the end. And July 3rd is actually more of a kids event than July 4th. And we have a big area that we will actually invite kids to actually run the robot. And what we do is we take a foot pad, I don't know if that's a dance pad, and we program that to run the robot. So you have kids that are like 4 years old and up, but you can have them, rather than having to be capable of doing joysticks, and we then detune the robot so it's, only, if they hit it on it, it only goes a few feet or only shoots so much. And we brought out the last one we had target. So then we have, we must have had like couple of hundred kids and family come by, and then each of the kids can actually run the robot, drive it, a few feet at a slow speed by jumping on certain pads. They can intake. They can, a certain, foot pad starts the intake running. Another one, will shoot and sort of aim. And I think we had the auto aiming. We were using, the last year's one that we had put up the target where we were shooting into. But the robot itself will do a self-aim, so we don't have to have them. They sort of have to get the turret somewhere in the vicinity, But it would shoot for them anyway. They just have to hit the right foot pad and shoot, and that becomes a really enjoyable event for the kids and our students on the team, running it all. So that's just one of the examples that we do a community event.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know with the theme reveal for next year, we had a lot of students who were very excited about potentially using a dance pad for Crescendo. Probably not for actual competition, but I think that's super fun. Yeah, that's a really good idea, and I like that. And so do you guys classify more that as just like a community event or an outreach event?
Well, I guess it's an outreach for us, but it's large community. I mean, you have, as I said, we could interact with a couple of hundred kids and family just on July 3rd, coming through all day and just, the kids sort of, get in line to, run the robot, and the others are just so happy to collect the balls and run them back into the intake. So you have so many kids involved. If they're not running it, they're out there, catching the balls, and so it becomes a lot of fun for a lot of people at the same time. And then we sort of, the younger kids, if we allow them, we could sign up, start getting them interested in FLL at that time. Because some of them are old enough to be of that age, and then you're reaching out to parents here. How do we get our kids engaged and you get kids sort of excited about playing with robots? And then it's an entry into education on FLL.
Yeah, I love that. I know KnightKrawler has talked about in the past doing something like a summer camp, and I know you've had experience with that, Eric. But I was wondering how other teams kind of do anything with like Legos. I know teams have shared some resources. I don't know how many meetings ago it was, but a couple meetings ago about their different like Lego camps. And I'd be interested, do we do things? Do most teams operate with Lego? Or, do we work outside of that a little bit? On our end, we do, like stomp rockets, and we have like little CD, like with balloon hovercraft things that we do as well. So I'd be interested just to like get a catalog of what some other teams do for these like summer community events, besides maybe bringing their robot.
Well, I don't know if anybody else wants to say about it. Every year we do have kids build a robot using an Arduino the last few years. So that one last year, it was like a 4-day camp, like 4 hours a day, but the last hour of each day, we had it set up so that the kids could actually build. We soldered wire harnesses, because that kind of thing. But last couple of years have been Arduinos, and they're trying to come up with something else next year. But that usually becomes the highlight for the kids, is to bring home a working robot.
Oh, so kids get to bring it home too.
Yeah, we buy kits. The last ones were, they're actually, was a actuated robot with wheels, and so it would run. So they could program that, and then we had a mode that had ultrasonic, so it would then avoid things. So it's programmed so if it hit a wall, it would turn and that kind of thing. We tried to do RF last year, and all the kids brought in, had them go to Goodwill and buy old RF transmitters, and then try to get that working so that they could actually use the buttons on a old TV remote or something, or DVD remote, and actually run it. So, but every kid gets to bring home their own robot. And then the other activities, the students decide exactly what they want to do each year. They come up with new things. They have to come up with a lot of things because the attention span's pretty small on these kids. They're doing like marshmallow bridges with the spaghetti. That was last year. And then they all compete to see who can do the highest one that doesn't crash, or marshmallow towers, I guess you might call them. And then they try and do airplanes last year, paper airplanes. They did a flashlight that they built with a battery and an LED with paper. And just, as I said, they come up with them. And then they have to figure out, tell us what do we need to buy. And then we spend quite a bit of the summer preparing to get each of these kits put together. So at the time that the week comes of the summer camp, everything is sort of, here's the agenda, but we always know we better have some extra stuff there, because you might actually have more time than you think sometimes.
Yeah. And so are those kids on your operation sub-team running that? And, you mentioned having to take time to put them together. How far in advance do you usually have to work?
Well, it's all volunteer. So, there's no sub-team in the summer. It's just whoever wants to work on it, they volunteer. So, as opposed to during the year, we have, our marketing and such. During the summer, you just say, whoever wants to work on that, you come, and then whoever wants to show up and help out, come during the day and help the kids out. And then each of the events, somebody has each of these tasks, and then you have a lead student who's running that. So sort of, they run that one, and then another student will pick up another project. So each of the students have a different project. Our programmer did and designed the Arduinos every year and all that, and he's pretty good at that. But making sure the kits are all ready to go, and sort of runs that one.
Yeah, love it. That's really interesting, and it seems like a really well-run program.
Yeah, we're actually starting now, making some decisions, and suggested they want to do some kind of catapult, and I have a trebuchet, a pretty nice one. So we're going to bring that, and the kids are going to try and, they're going to try and catapult or trebuchet some raw eggs and try and see if they can package them so they don't, how far they can go, and if they don't break them. I think that's one of the things they came up with this year. So.
Is that run through your booster program, Eric, or is that run through community ed? Maybe this is too in the weeds, or maybe you don't want to share, but how's the money work? Do people pay for it? How does that all work?
The students, I guess it's community ed, runs the summer camps. We're just one of the classes at the summer camp. I think the parents have to pay a certain amount towards it. It usually doesn't cover our expenses, and especially when you're buying Arduinos and servos and all that. It comes out of our pockets at the end, whatever's the difference.
Okay, that's good to know. The Lego things the conversations we've had just in the last month here in Blaine have been all community ed focused. As far as anything outside of our team, it just ends up being community ed. So I was just wondering if that was the same way, and it sounds like it is. So
yeah, I mean they handle our scheduling and all that, and the payments, all that, and getting people signed up. But once they hand us the classes, they have nothing to do with it.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, something we ran into, I think mostly, so when we got our community ed proposal, they were like, hey, if you want to do something, it's, December, January when you have to tell us that you want to do it. And so I think that's what we ran into was like, oh, we don't have anything prepared, so we're not like ready to say yes. And then by the time that like we might have had something, that deadline had kind of passed. So I'm assuming, Eric, for you guys, it's pretty set up. You've been doing this for multiple years. But Jeremy, interested to know, like, does your community ed just ask you as like school is ending, or has this been an ongoing conversation?
We are completely from the ground up. We've had no connection with the middle school in the past, and any other elementary school things. So when I'm talking about community ed, I mean even just like FLL teams in general. Like we had one. There's one in Andover, which isn't even for one of our feeder schools. So we're just in the very beginning moments of it. But our community ed person was very excited about it and said, like, if you provide someone over the age of 18, we'll make it happen. So ours has been very like helpful in that sense, but we have to provide the person. So
we always have adult mentors there. Anything we do with our students, we have adult mentors. And I've been volunteering. We had another adult mentor myself last year, and we're pretty much in the background. It's just when you have anything run by students, it's required to have. I guess that's what you were saying, over 18 or something. But we always have adult mentors there.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
Are you able to have your graduating seniors be some of those adult mentors or even volunteers who run the camps?
I don't think our seniors sort of disappear at this time of year. Last year we didn't have one senior there. I remember but I think we have our outreach senior right now who's starting the organization, but we'll have new captains and leads soon, and he's just going to hand it over. So our seniors actually, come summer, leave the program. And it's all run by new students, as you say, but usually our seniors are not part of our summer program.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I had a question for people who've done things over the summer, Joseph and Lexi and Eric. What about students? Is there any expectations for students to do things in the summer? And I know, Eric, you said like people just volunteer, but if you only have 10 people, but then 4 of them really want to do summer stuff and 6 of them are kind of like, I don't really want to. Not that that's our situation, but does anybody have any thoughts on that? Has that ever happened? Like,
I know, for us, it's very much like if you have things that you want to work on, like come and do them. And generally we only meet like once a week in the summer. So, during the school year, pre-build season, we're meeting twice a week. In the build season, we're meeting 4 days a week, plus optional meetings. So, and then that kind of lets up with between competitions. And then in the summer, I think mostly probably due to mentor availability and stuff, it is 1 day a week. I'm sure there are students who would want it to be more than that. But generally it's 1 day a week. And we'll use Slack and people will be like, hey, I want to work on this. And they'll just coordinate through that. I think the exception is probably those larger events that are, like the big festival and stuff like that, where we need more students. And then we kind of try and push out like on email and stuff. We're like, hey, this is a good opportunity, especially I think with those, we do try and engage students who maybe didn't get a chance to do as much outreach in the spring or in the fall last year, either because they're new to the program or just schedules are busy sometimes.
Yeah, we have never required people to do off-season stuff. I think I think our team is pretty lucky in that, we have 31 students technically on our roster, and a lot of students are, I think, really passionate throughout both the build season and off-season. And so we have Rasmus, I think, was there for a lot of our summer last year. He's on this call and maybe he can speak to this, but if I remember correctly, we had about 8 to 10 students, I think, at each of our practices last summer. And I think we met twice a week over the summer. I'd be interested in seeing how we do it again this year. I know the mentor that coordinated a lot of our summer meetings is not currently with the team. And so, I'd be interested in seeing what that looks like this summer. But we have never required it. People just sort of show up. They, I think we'll reach out before each practice over Slack about, what we're working on, and people will show up. We usually have like a regular crew of people that are usually there. And then as far as events, again, it's kind of the same as, people who want to show up can show up. We have, I have organized a lot of our, over the summer, like events in the past. And I do really like to, coordinate weeks beforehand about like, if you would like to come to this event, please respond now so that I can make plans. And so, we do require that, you just communicate about that, but, there's no requirement that you have to come to these events. And we've never had, I think, an issue with not enough people showing up to an event. The only thing I can think of is like this, we're doing LEGO camps again this summer, and we had communicated to our team about like, hey, if you want to be a mentor for our LEGO camps, you can sign up here. And we communicated that once, and then I think there was 1 week where we had 2 slots open. And like technically, I think if we had like communicated again over Slack, more people would have showed up. But I talked to our head coach, Michael, because I had talked to a couple of my friends in Winchell, and they were both interested in doing LEGO camp. And so they're helping us out over the summer and helping to mentor one of our camps. But so that's like the only example I can think of where we didn't technically have like enough people or enough interest in a specific event. But so I mean, consider reaching out to other teams if you don't have enough people. There are a lot of robotics people that I think have a lot of interest over the summer.
Also, I just want to say one thing about what we did last year is we did Swerve over the summer. So we had a lot of people that were interested in coming and figuring that out. And we had other stuff that we had planned to work on, like updating like a robot cart or like the pit or stuff like that. And that was stuff that we had planned on and then we didn't really get done. But we got Swerve done, and that was the big milestone there. So it's really about where people's interests were, and Swerve was the big interest there. So that was the thing that got done.
Every year we have this idea we're going to create a demo bot, and never totally gets done. But what did get is a lot like Erasmus. We had to get Swerve, learn how to do Swerve, and we had to have that by off season. So we built a demo bot, at least the chassis, put the Swerve on and got it running. And great, we have this demo bot with Swerve, but then when we got to season, we needed those Swerve drives. So now we have a decommissioned demo bot again with no Swerve drives for it. Yes.
If Swerve ever gets into stock again, we might do that this summer, but you can't even buy it if you want to. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was the expense too. We the mentors had to sort of make a decision. Are we, how many Swerve drives can we afford here? That's what do we give up, or what are you going to do to the students that we can buy you a Swerve drive or a set of Swerve drives? And they said, "Oh, we will guarantee that we'll do this much marketing if you buy a Swerve drive." So I said, "Okay." And I don't know if we got that out of them, but it was a negotiation. But yeah, that was a big summer task, and we have. I can't talk for this year, but in previous years, we've had a lot of kids really engaged during the summer doing projects, and like the Swerve drive and this demo bot, and if they can get mentors there, they'll be there. We've got a room, and I mean, we have facilities to work, but it all is their convincing mentors to be there for them to work. We'll see how this summer goes too. The other thing we have is we have a lot of things lined up every summer. And what we do is we get a student to champion each. They become the lead. And it's up to that student to then advertise it and schedule it and organize it through our Slack channel. So, I mean, they have, for each of these, they have a mentor to back them up, but it's their task to do this. Like the summer camp, we have a team, they have a lead to run the summer camp, and then it's up to them to get the volunteers and organize to make it happen. Another thing that we do that I've been implementing is working with IEEE. So I don't know if many teams are familiar with them. They're the largest, let's say, engineering organization in the world. And they have chapters all over the world. I don't know if anybody's heard of IEEE. And what we do, they have a summer picnic every year. And then I've been bringing teams in since FLL and FTC that actually do presentations to IEEE. So that last year, the other thing we do is we try and get another local team to also show up. We invite a second team, so we aren't the only ones there, and let them do some presentation too. But we become the main presentation. This is like a 30-minute presentation for them, plus bringing in the robots and demoing. So that becomes a fairly large task during the summer to get students involved, create a presentation, and actually practice, and then coordinate it with the local group here and do that demonstration. So that's something else that I think works quite well. We were fortunate enough to, after this year, to actually get sponsorship from IEEE, which is fairly unique for them because they usually sponsor college students and graduate students. So because we've been, over the years as a team coming in and presenting to them, they agreed to actually sponsor this year, which became one of our largest sponsors. So I was pretty happy about that one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm definitely going to have to look into IEEE because I didn't know that was a thing. You mentioned getting sponsored by them, Eric, and I was wondering what other teams do. Like, do you engage with sponsors during the summer? How do you do that? I mean, obviously it depends on the type of sponsor. But like, what does that look like, and or to use that time to do grants or anything else?
Yeah, I know we apply for a grant every year, the Smith Foundation grant. So we'll apply for actually 2 grants with that foundation, one for our shop improvements. So that's, in the past we've used that grant to get things like, last year we used it for Swerve. In the past we used it to get I think we got a tube bending machine a couple years ago. And then the other grant that we apply for under the Smith Foundation is the, I forget what it's, team improvement or something like that. And that's how we get the money required to, our team operates with sliding scale fees. So our students can pay their team fees and travel fees on a sliding scale. With that grant, we can get the money that we need to sort of balance out the money that we lose through that model. So we apply for the Smith grant. I know we're looking at a lot of grants this summer because a lot of grant application deadlines are like over the summer. I know there's one in July that we're looking at. But yeah, we're definitely looking at grants. And then we, in the past, have not done too much work with, looking for new sponsors, bringing new sponsors on board. I'd be interested in maybe doing that this summer. We, in the past, have done a lot of our sponsor drive during the fall and a little bit into the build season. And I think I am interested in us adopting a year-round system for our sponsor drive. So I would be interested in that. But as far as like engaging the sponsors that we have, Lexi, like you said, that's sort of dependent on the sponsor. We have, some sponsors that just give us money, and there are also some sponsors that will provide different types of resources. We have a sponsor that provides us with parts. There's one that anodizes our parts. And then we have a couple like food sponsors. The Naughty Greek gives us euros for our Minneapolis competition. And I think, we're really close with them, and they have been really interested in helping us out more and, supporting our team in different ways. And so like this past week, actually, we had a fundraiser with them where, people would come to their restaurant, and it was sort of similar to like a Chipotle fundraiser, if any teams have done that before, where 10% of the profits from a meal went to our team if you said the promo code Novitic. And so, we might be interested in doing something like that this summer where we work with a sponsor on like an event. We've also done something like that with the Bakken Museum this past year who sponsors us. And so, I would definitely be interested in engaging our sponsors more and, working with them more over the summer.
A lot of engineering firms that we've had sponsor in the past tend to have some kind of company picnic in the summer. It's just a really good time that they usually end up doing that. So then we've presented at that before. Just had the robot in the parking lot, and especially if the company, sometimes the company has like families also invited, so it's like a full thing, and then we can, the kids love having the robot there and stuff too. So the summer is just nice because for that sort of thing, because both us as a team and then the sponsors tend to be a little bit more laid back and just like open to just kind of hanging out and showing off what we did at the end of the year. That's also a nice time because we know what we accomplished as far as goals and what the robot actually ended up being. We've had sponsors reach out to have us present in like January, and we're just like, no, basically, we don't have anything to show you. So wait a couple months. So the summer's been really nice for that sort of thing. If the sponsor has that sort of event.
Yeah, I love both of those ideas. Those are really great. I think summer is definitely something that we could use to leverage. In the fall, our controls captain organized a tour of a nearby manufacturing facility, and now they are a sponsor. And so I think like doing something like that would also be really cool. And we've always opened up our reveal night to sponsors, but I don't know. I'd be interested if we had numbers on how many actually attend that. But I didn't think about company picnics at all. That is such a great idea. That's just a good idea, and it's something really easy, and it's also super fun for students. Just like, hey, go hang out outside. We don't touch grass enough during the winter, so we can do that now. I also wondered, like, you know, during build season, we do a lot of like collaborating with other teams, you know, to help each other out on different projects, you know, whether that's Swerve or just, you know, working with tools in the shop for a rookie team or something like that. Do teams do different things like that in the summer where we like keep working on projects together? And if so, what does that look like for you?
Sorry. I don't think I've ever worked on a project with other teams over the summer, though. Again, that seems interesting, and I would be interested in us pursuing that. But I know I've been talking with Phoebe about like fun ideas for like inter-team bonding events. We actually had a movie night where we invited the St. Paul Hub over to our shop to watch a documentary on the Mars rover. And you know, that was a fun little event for our teams to bond. And I'm really excited for us to sort of organize more of those over the summer. No promises, but you know, keep your eyes peeled for some special announcements. But yeah, I think the summer is a great time to just sort of like connect more with other teams and, you know, create a more in-depth bond between teams and, you know, local teams in your area. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we're part of the Southwest Hub. I'm not sure whether we meet during the summer, but during off season, and now we meet fairly regularly to do team bonding, inter-team bonding, and some things is they play games, or I find a gym and do some dodgeball, or do all sorts of sort of team fun things together. I know earlier we actually, might have been at the beginning of this team season, we actually, you know, started, you know, trading ideas. We actually, you know, we'd have people going to each other's schools and then gather there and just discuss different topics. A lot like we're doing here in this roundtable. The Southwest Hub does similar things, but then in person.
I'm sorry that I was late. Did anybody talk about things they do in their shop, to their shop over the summer, like build out storage units or change out their pit structures or anything like that? Does anyone have any summer projects lined up, or the things they've done in the past? I know for KnightKrawler, we made several rolling boxes. We made a whole new battery charging station. We did a fastener station. Those turned out to be pretty big projects, especially when you're dealing with heavy stuff like 12 batteries. So it takes a lot of glue and structure and let it set up for a week. Is anyone doing anything like that this summer?
Last summer we built a new bolt cart for all of our fasteners and everything. And this summer we are building a new battery cart to better manage our battery charging and all of that. And after having pulled the pit down to Houston, we are going to be going through our pit to take out all of the unnecessary items that are in there to cut the weight down.
Yeah, if it had not been for the Amazon semi that Chicken Butt Pie was able to get donated and coordinated, we were looking at significantly cutting down our pit and making rolling dollies that would hold probably six totes, and maybe making a few other things, but really going bare bones for Champs, because we pulled our trailer last year and it was super expensive because, you know, somebody pulling the trailer can't drive straight through like a bus can drive straight through. So those extra hotel nights really drove up the cost of that.
Yeah, we also pulled Babbitt's down, so we had 2 pits in our trailer, so that added. I talked to a couple different teams down there that they have designed their entire pit, and they try to design their robot every year to fit underneath a coach bus, so that they can just throw it all in the bus and go.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. And this year, our buses that we've taken in the past have had 3 storage bays under the bus, and the bus we had this year only had 2. It's a good thing we didn't try to put the pit underneath the bus, because I'm not sure all of our luggage and the pit would have fit with only 2 out of the 3 bays available. We threw a curve, so maybe if no one else had attempted this, we had a little bit of a last minute curveball thrown our way, because we were planning to send the robot down with a mentor who was planning to drive in her back seat. It did fit. We verified it fit in the back of her vehicle. And Houston said, no, everything has to come together. You cannot have your tools delivered in the semi and drop the robot off in a separate vehicle. And I was a little taken aback by that. That seems odd that you would send 10 teams down in a semi and not allow 1 extra vehicle to come in. I mean, think of all the traffic you're saving by docking a semi down there. Plus, it's not really very equitable. There are teams that have to rent 2 vans, and they're not going to put their pit in 1 van and students in another. So telling them that they can only pull up 1 vehicle, that doesn't seem very equitable to me. But anyway, yeah, so for anyone who's thinking, like we were thinking of, we'll put the pit under the bus, and we didn't want to lay a robot on its back, so we thought we would drive it down separate. That was not going to be an option, and so fortunately, we found that out and was able to get the robot on the semi before it left.
I'm surprised you couldn't have just dropped it off a block away and like walked.
That's what I said. I said, look,
there's a robot out here. Who knew?
We'll put it on dollies and we'll just push it in through the reloading dock. They're going to not have any idea that this robot didn't come off one of the other vehicles. So luckily the semi was planning to leave 4 days sooner than it did. And we had lots of autonomous work we wanted to do. We had a new auto routine we wanted to get done. Luckily the semi ended up leaving the same day the bus left. So it really didn't kind of matter. But yeah, I mean, it could have been a problem. And I feel like I don't know. Their policy is their policy. We'll just have to deal with it, I guess.
To add on to the hub conversation earlier, us in Anoka Hennepin, a few of the teams are talking about doing a volunteer day at Valley Fair. And if you get multiples of 5 people, then you get $200 per student. And it's an 8-hour workday, I think. I don't know all the details, but we're trying to drum up enough to get some kind of multiple of 5. If it's not a multiple of 5, then it's only $100 per person for the day. So it really helps to like have 10 or 15 or whatever, 5, whatever we end up with them out. But we're talking to a bunch of Anoka Hennepin teams about doing something like that.
Can you talk a little bit more about what's going on with Valley Fair? I'm not sure I understand.
I haven't been coordinating it, but the coach for Champlain Park, I believe, knows of some way to do it where I think it's during a week. I think it's in August, but the students would work like an 8-hour shift. And of course they have to be 16 or older. And then they get $200 if it's a multiple of 5 amount of people. I think, again, I don't know all the specifics. I think they just work like a stand or whatever. I mean, they don't operate rides or anything like that. It's something very low maintenance. But
okay, so it's not robot related. It's just
correct.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Fundraiser. It's
only. Just a fundraiser.
Correct. Yep. But we're just working with some of the other teams in our area to try and get a multiple of 5 people, basically.
Yeah, something we do for fundraising is we've partnered with Mill City Roasters to make like KnightKrawler coffee. And we've sold that throughout the year, but when it's summer, the New Brighton community has its farmers market. So every week we go, we bring students coffee and a robot. And so usually, kids will come up, play catch with the robot, and then we convince their parents to buy coffee. And that's kind of great because it acts both as, something that makes money for the team, but it's also, just raising STEM visibility day to day. Not every day do you get to see a robot at your farmer's market. So people have fun with that. And it's been a way for alumni to kind of come back and reconnect just randomly, which is fun. And the other thing that we've been working on for this summer is actually a Section 4 meetup for teams. So we're part of MSHSL Section 4. And so right now we have students working on coordinating, getting like a pavilion at a park, and then inviting the teams in our section to kind of come up and meet together. And I forgot to talk about that when we were talking about doing things with other teams. So, we'll see how it goes, but I think it's a really good idea, especially because, it's hard to do things with the whole of Minnesota sometimes. And so breaking it down by section can be helpful.
So how many teams go to the state fair?
We do.
Okay. I know the kids get a kick out of that one and usually come up with, I guess you can win a blue ribbon and $100 or something like that. They're pretty, they get pretty excited about.
Yeah, isn't there something like 6 or 8 teams that are doing demos each day? Is that right? There must be quite a few teams that go. I don't. We have one.
I think it's 3 a day, three times a day.
It's only 3.
No, it's
they do it 3 times, like 3 different.
Yeah. So oh geez, I know. I went last year, and we were there with Rogue Robotics and another team. And I don't think we were there multiple days. I feel like we were just there the one, maybe.
Yeah, it's one day. It's one day, and I think it's usually like 10 a.m., noon, and 2 p.m. or something like that. There's like 3 different demo times, but they've only had 3 teams per day in the past, at least. So, and the fair is like 10 days, so that's 30 teams total.
Yeah, as a student, I think it's super fun. I think it is also one of the only times where we let kids drive robots. So, and that's something that we've been kind of hesitant about in the past, just for safety reasons. But they usually have fun with that, and it's almost like a mini competition in terms of the stress. Sometime last year, we showed up and a radio was not working. Luckily, Rogue had a spare, so that was good. But I think as a student, State Fair is really fun because for me it combines, like both the talking about robotics with also like the demo, and it's a really great way to engage people that you probably wouldn't otherwise come into contact with. Yeah, and it reaches a lot of people. I mean, the State Fair has, it's the Great Minnesota Get Together.
And all the robots, even if you're not competing that day, any robot that's competing is out on display the whole time. So every time I ever go, I always like to check out all the robots and walk by them and stuff. So do they do a scoring competition still, or is that not a thing anymore? Where like each team has to do something for a little bit, or is that not?
Oh, not when I went. We just like had the robots out, did demos, had kids drive. I know the robots were judged, like by judges, and each received like different levels and whatever.
I'm old. I was there in 2013, and they had like an actual scoring thing where you had to shoot the frisbees, and like you got a number score for how many frisbees you can make or whatever. Oh
yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I don't remember anything like that, but they did also have an FTC display. So if there are any teams that have like connections with an FTC team, they can submit their robots as well, which I think is a great opportunity to highlight, different levels. I don't think they had an FLL table, but they could.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know for the scoring thing, at least how it's happened in the past 2 years, I think, is the robots are either judged on mechanical or electrical, and then it's like a short little, I guess, like, I don't know if it's an essay. It's like a few questions answered about the robots are submitted, and that's how that works for scoring, I believe.
Yeah, the robots were judged too. It was just like something to do, you know, as part of the hour we were demoing each time or whatever. Like each robot would have like 2 minutes, and then your highest score got posted on the table just for a competition fun thing. It didn't matter for any of the judging.
Somebody had a question before Erasmus. If I remember that right, maybe not.
I was just going to say that in the past, they've had FLL teams doing demos as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. I hope they bring that back. Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to be like, how do you have kids join robotics? Here are your 3 options. I guess I don't really know this but as much as a student. We'll see if Scott's still here and can answer this. But I don't know how mentor availability usually works during the summer or KnightKrawler. But I'd be interested to know what other teams, you know, is it a struggle to get mentors during the summer, or are people generally more free? Oh, do you have a question, Greg?
Let me answer that first with the KnightKrawler question. We have 1 or 2 mentors who are able to come 1 day a week. So we pick a day, we meet from 6 until 8 or 6 until 9, and we accomplish whatever we can get accomplished in those 2 to 3 hours. That's how it's worked in the past. If we have mentors who want to do more, or students who want to do more, and it works with the schedule, then I think we probably would, but it largely depends on availability.
Yeah, that's what I figured. What's up, Greg?
Oh, not much. How you doing? Yeah, we're Cambridge Isani Blue Jacket Robotics. You know, we're kind of geographically in our own little world, about 45 miles north of Minneapolis. So you know, all that stuff sounds great, but our nearest team is about 20 miles from us, a little less, North Branch maybe, Mora, all small country teams. So most of our fundraising, we're driven and funded by our small communities, and we live off these $500 donations. So most of the stuff we do during the summer is Cambridge Appreciation Days, where they shut down the main road and we roll out our big carpeting out on the road and just let these young kids drive around the competition robot. Let's tear it up. We're not going to be using it next year. It's a lot of fun too, and it's also good for recruiting. Pique the interests and tell the kids and show the entire community what we're doing. One of our biggest fundraisers that we do, though, is what we do have is a sure abundance of farm animals. So we have a local beef farmer that donates a quarter beef, and Isani Meat Markets processes it for us. And we have 202 pounds of steaks, ground beef for a $10 raffle ticket. We usually end up, we're allowed up to $5,000 for a not-for-profit. And we usually hit that mark pretty darn close. So it's one of the best fundraisers. It was some crazy idea. We're looking around. What do we have? Farm animals. So, yeah, we genuinely have more chickens and cows than we do have people at our school, district. Covers about 250 square miles from what I understand. So covers vast amount of small towns, 2 small towns together, Cambridge, Isani, plus all these townships and even smaller towns that you probably never even heard of, and really doesn't really exist in my opinion. But so our community is our bread and butter. We do Kids Day in Isani just to pique the interest, right? Fly the banners of all our sponsors and keep in touch with them and show them that, thank you for our support by supporting our local communities. And that's how we exist, just on these little $500, $600 and a lot of pancakes and bagging groceries. So, and, you wouldn't be able to tell that we're a pretty low budget team because we got very resourceful people in our town, and our pits reflect, a certain amount of professionalism, I believe. And that's all hand built and handcrafted. So, you don't have to have big bucks to look good and be good, And it's not all about the pits anyways. It's mostly about the kids. We focus hard on the kids. And my wife just got back from the senior dinner for the upper 10%. And she was being honored as an inspirational person in a couple of students' lives. So that was pretty cool. So that's where we're at. I mean, hey, we're happy with $500 from Cambridge Dental. It's awesome. And we're proud of it. Doesn't anybody have any big sponsors we might be able to get? Yeah, that's our big
sponsor list. Your sponsor list on Blue Alliance is incredibly impressive. Holy smokes.
We do have Team Industries, which used to be part of Motec, which is the main manufacturing in Cambridge. They're our biggest sponsors, but if you look at it, we even have family names that, just here's $1,000 and we're like, holy cow, thanks. And it's all small businesses throughout the community that sponsors us. So we're darn proud of it. So that's who we are.
Yeah, I really admire that close-knit sponsor relationship. I think that is definitely something to be super proud of. Yeah, and I would love to have our students interact with our sponsors in that same way. And, I think we can do a little bit more than just a newsletter every quarter sometimes.
Yeah, it makes it a little more personal. And when the kids do the Isani Rodeo parade, they're like rock stars. It's crazy. Everybody's cheering and screaming, and I'm like going, geez, they're almost like the Beatles in the town. So it is pretty cool. So everybody knows us, and if there's something going on, we're there. So we do have a small network of small teams that Cheryl, I think Scott's met Cheryl, and maybe a few of you. Everybody knows Cheryl. Networks with coaches. She's probably one of the biggest reasons that Malacca still has a team and some other teams still function, because she's taken on the role as a coach's mentor for some of these other, trying not to influence the way these teams are or who they are, but helping out the coaches with like simple discussions and reminders going out. Don't forget to register your team for, whatever, for lacrosse or for, because, there's nobody out there really teaching any of these coaches what exactly to do. You don't realize that teams have to be registered way before anything starts and stuff like that. So, she is like the workhorse of Minnesota Central North. It's incredible what she does. I just find it absolutely, like, seriously. Rockford was not going to actually go down to Houston. And my wife convinced the coach to say, you know what, talk to our sponsors. And this is how you go about getting down there. You have to go down because teams, the small teams, rural teams, I hate to say it, don't really have too many shots at going down there like some of these big teams. They're not as, well funded or equipped. And when a team says we can't go, well, she said, no, you're going. So we're going to get you there. So she dropped everything and worked with that head coach to get enough money, got him in touch with a couple of our big sponsor, Team Industries. They ended up donating $5,000 to him. We're like, oh, wait a minute. Why can't we get some of that? Just to get them down to Houston, and they made it down there. And I hope the kids had the time of their lives. I haven't been able to talk to them yet, but it's not about how well you're going to do down there. It's about the experience they're going to have. So, and some teams just don't have that opportunity that often. So when they do, they got to get down there, check it out. We're not as awesome as KnightKrawler, huh, Scott? Just joking. Every team's cool. Every team's different. Every team's cool. So,
well, our price tag is getting to the point where I'm like, yeah. There, I think we estimated 37,000 this year to take the team to Houston. I think we ended up closer to 34, but it's just so much you can do with that money.
Yeah, they got down there. They were looking for. They flew down there, and some poor sap like me drove the team's equipment down and robot and stuff. So they were looking at more like 20. They're a small team, so a little less than 20,000 to get there and back. So, and they made it, which is awesome.
Well, Greg, I agree. For a lot of the teams, this might be a once in a lifetime experience when they get a chance to go down to Houston, and it's hard. You don't know if they're ever going to get another chance. It really does make sense when they have that opportunity to use it.
Yeah, I mean it's almost an unfortunate thing about the whole program. I mean, money makes the robot go round, and it's much true to it. So, unfortunate thing. But there is a lot of teams out there. Mora, they probably run on a budget of 10,000 and under. They're total recyclers, and we have them over in our shop, and so they can have a little more equipment training so they can make their own stuff. We make a ton of stuff ourselves. I mean, who needs to buy axles when you have, milling machines? Was it laugh? I was like, well, it'd take 4 or 5 days to get this axle. And one of our students says, give me about 30 minutes. I'll be back with one. And went into the shop and milled in his own axle for, one of the gearboxes. So that kind of makes me chuckle, But yeah, recycle. And, when some of these smaller teams have an opportunity, you just got to push them and help them. So, but that's all Cheryl. I'm just along for the ride.
That was the conversation at the Mentor Roundtable down in La Crosse for North Star.
Yep.
Was how do we support these existing teams that are struggling for mentors financially, whatever. And I ran into Rockford, their coach and their students, a couple times down at Worlds, and they were making the most of the opportunity, and they were having the time of their lives. So
awesome.
They were having a blast.
Yep. They just about gave up on even thinking of going down there. So we couldn't let that happen. Especially when they got the kind of the weirdest story you ever heard of. They joined us up in Duluth, Superior side, and they were the one team that rolled over and crashed, and their robot was completely destroyed because it wasn't strapped down in the back of the trailer. So our team ended up helping them out and went from team to team, scrounging parts and rebuilding bump. It hit so hard it broke the plywood behind the bumper. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And our pit crew on Thursday went to with their pit crews or their students, and they were going like from team to team, grabbing parts and putting together, and got that robot at about 8 o'clock on a Thursday night to actually pass inspection, and they were able to compete. Took them all day to put it back together, but they were able to compete. Then they turn around to go down with us to La Crosse, Minnesota, 10,000 Lakes La Crosse, and they won a ticket. It's like Rex to riches is the story. It's pretty fun, because that robot was built with a little bit of piece of bunch of little teams and a bunch of other teams there up in Duluth. So it came back. They did make some improvements and changed a few things, but the robot down there was a piece of, 80 or 93, a piece of, a bunch of other teams. I can't even name them all that, had all the little bits and pieces that it got that thing back going again. So that's kind of a cool story. So they're like, no. There's no way you're going to, miss out on this. You guys are going. So
Michael Flood from Nomethic contacted me earlier this week and asked if we had a topic for tonight's call, because he had one in mind, but obviously we've already got this one and next week's already set. But he was suggesting that we might want to pull together the teams that recently spent money to go to champs and sort of have a breakdown of where did you find that you could save money? What were your costs? How did you do this or how do you do that? I know a lot of smaller teams are using Airbnb because they can fit the entire team in a house or something like that, which sounds like a great way to do it. I've heard of teams that fly in and then they either have someone drive down in a minivan or rent a minivan and they just shuttle people back and forth from wherever they're staying rather than paying for transportation, like renting a local bus company. So I think that's a good topic, but it might be something that the students may get really bored with really quick. And maybe this is a mentor topic at some point. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on doing a call like that, where we basically just have a budget meeting and talk about finances and things for champs, but I'm not opposed to it. I'll open up our books and show you everything we spent our money on.
Scott, I'd be down for a budget meeting.
Yeah, budget meeting. Yes.
That sounds like a great idea.
Accounting is Lexi's jam.
We weren't close to qualifying, but we had talked before, like just in case, like just the couple of mentors we have, we were like, we'll have to rent a van and we'll just drive down there. I mean, that's kind of what that was our backup plan if something happened, and we just wouldn't have the money for any of that stuff. We were very fortunate to get $4,000 in donations from parents of students who have graduated within the last 10 years. And that right now we're looking like we may end the year break even. We were looking at ending the year at a loss previous to 2 weeks ago with what it was going to cost for us to go to champs. And it created a lot. I mean, we have savings, and we have savings for that reason to kind of cover the years where things get a little lean. We did lose a couple sponsors this year, and then we had other sponsors that dropped their sponsorship amount from previous years. And it was a lean year for KnightKrawler. But when you start thinking about spending $40,000 on a 3-day trip or a 4-day trip, you start thinking about what are all the other things that we could do with half that money if we only sent half the team. And so we are having some kind of tricky and tough conversations about, does it really make sense to send the whole team down or not? And I get the whole, there's no guarantee that you could go back, and it's a legitimate reason to send the whole team. But there's also the other side of it when you send kids who it's their first year on their team and they haven't really indoctrinated themselves into robotics yet, and they spend a lot of the trip sitting playing games on their phone in the stands. That wasn't worth over $1,000 to send that student to champs. So it's tricky. It's really hard. And you always want to do the right thing for the students, but when the costs are so high, you have to decide what's the best thing to do for everybody.
Break out the credit cards.
Yeah, and we've changed our policy this year. I know that I've mentioned it on the call several times, but KnightKrawler several years ago, when there were so many protests around racial inequality and stuff like that, we stepped back and started thinking about how we can be more equitable on the team. And we set all travel fees for all student, regardless of any free or reduced lunch program or anything else. We made all travel fees optional. And so when you have you're just asking for the parents to pitch in what they can. And you can't say, well, we know we're going to collect this much money from students. It gets harder. But even then, even when we stepped back and we looked at it and we said, if every single parent contributed the $250 suggested donation whose student is not on free and reduced lunch, that's still going to cover less than 20% of our trip. And it's like, we can have these equity programs all day long and we can hope for the best. But even if we got 100% participation, which we did this year, it was fantastic. The parents were amazing. We got, in fact, we had some students who were on free and reduced lunch whose family donated something. So we got over 100% participation, but we still didn't collect. We didn't even get to 25% of the total costs. So it gets really hard fiscally when you do that. But we really went off the rails of our topic of summer. What do we do in the summer?
You're doing some accounting this summer. Sounds like.
Yeah, I did the books today. That's how I know that it looks like if we're careful, I think we're going to end the year on the right side of the ledger line, where before we were looking at doing a loss. But I did that accounting today. Plus, I think, like Lexi said, I think our coffee fundraiser at the farmers market, I think that's going to be a good fundraiser for this summer, and I think that'll help us make sure that we finish on the right side of the line as well.
Yeah, and hopefully having a task force fundraising for people to actually think about it during the school year next year would be good.
I like what you said about Valley Fair. You know, the events that we go to at 10K, you know, Mariucci and Williams Arena, the people that run those concession stands, they're all nonprofits that apply to run those concession stands, and they get a cut of the sales. And I think it would be good to look into more things like that as fundraising opportunities for kids to help the team over the summer. Especially those kids that, if you're allowed to do that under the age of 16, we have lots of students who'd love to have a summer job, but nobody will hire them because they're not 16 yet. If we can find things like that kids who are under 16 can't find a summer job, but could help do fundraising, that's even better.
Well, that was one of the things that a few of our students that, when we went to Worlds, they went to some of the workshops on, you know, marketing and all of that stuff, and they have got a plan now for this summer of what they're going to do business wise to start now to raise money so that we're not in this situation for next fall. When our team qualified for the first time to go to Worlds in 2016, it was that whole moment of, we're going to Worlds. Oh no, we're going to Worlds. We got to pay for it. So after that, they decided every year that they were going to, in their budget, they set aside, they started out at $5,000 every year that they were going to add to their budget to put into a Worlds fund. So they've had that in their budget every year. So we've got that money sitting there.
Yep. And that's really smart. And depending on, you know, how your money is managed, if you, like KnightKrawler is a 501c3 nonprofit, and so we have our own bank account, and we do budget to go to Worlds every year. And if we don't end up going to Worlds, that money will be there for the following year. Or we can do something else with that money. I mean, that kind of money would let you refresh all of your laptops, or, you know, build a robot over the summer that is purely for demos, you know, and so there's a lot of things you could do with that money if you budgeted ahead of time to say, we're going to try to fundraise for this trip. And if we don't make it, then it'll be that we're going to hang on to it, or we'll spend it on XYZ. Maybe you buy a CNC, maybe you buy a water jet. I mean, who knows? I mean, just think about that. You could not go to Worlds, and then you could get like this huge, ginormous water jet. I know several students who'd say, let's not go to Worlds. I want that water jet.
But it was fun to see them now that they are excited to not only work for our team, but they have made connections on other teams from around the area that they want to start working with them so that they can help all of the other teams in our area prepare for going to Worlds and what that means for their team, and so that they all don't have that same moment of, we're going to Worlds, but can we go to Worlds?
I think that's a great segue. We're at the end of our time. So next week's topic is going to be run by students. I think Lexi and Joseph, and I don't think Ian's on the call tonight. He said he was busy, but you guys are planning to run next week's topic, right? So, and your topic is making Minnesota FRC better. Is that right?
Yeah, and kind of introducing the idea of a Minnesota First Student Advocacy Board in the same way that, you know, FUM has a board. So, yeah.
All right. So just like you were saying, David, working with other teams, getting them ready to be better. That's, I think, what we're going to be talking about all next week. So the students will be running the show next week. Does anyone have any topic suggestions for the following week? Everybody want to do accounting? I'm joking. I don't feel like that's going to be a good roundtable topic. Although if anybody wants to know how we do our books, I'm happy to share it. I actually made 5.5 hours of YouTube videos on how we do accounting so that someone could someday take the books over from me. It's on our website if you guys want to go find it. But anyway, topics for after next week.
Ian is on the call, so I think we should all congratulate Ian.
Oh, Ian's on the call. I did not see him on the call. Yes, congratulations, Ian. Is that like the third Woody Flowers winner from Minnesota? I don't even know how many there's been.
Last year,
It was Dean's List. Not that matters. But
I mean, yeah, Dean's List.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dean's List.
And
Yeah, I think there's
year-
only been a couple from Minnesota that made it all the way to the end. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe there's way more than I was thinking. I'm pretty sure one of the students from Robettes about 6 or 8 years ago made it to the end of Dean's List. And I can't remember if there was anyone else from Minnesota.
last year, Nate King from Ultraviolet.
Fantastic. So it's pretty exclusive crowd. All right. So if we don't have anything else that anybody wants to talk about after next week, we'll bring it up again and we'll see. And if anyone wants to, one of the things that KnightKrawler does over the summer is training. I know that we've already had a we start planning the training for the following year. I know that we've already had a topic about how do we do training. But maybe we can get a little bit more in depth about that. One of the things that we've tried to do in the past, and we may try again, is to do video training, to record videos so that students could watch them at their own pace. Maybe there's a group here that might want to try to collaborate and do video training on something like that and create a library. I actually, in the sign up thing for signing up for this call, several people have mentioned CAD. Maybe we should take a Sunday night. We should do kind of the getting started basics of Onshape. That seems to be the CAD of choice for FRC nowadays. We could do that if people think it's a good idea. So we'll try to nail down a topic next week for the following week to come. Thank you, Lexi, for covering for me for the first half. I really, really appreciate it. Anyone else have any things they want to, just before we sign off, anyone they want to bring up or say? All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.